My name is Lucinda Newton. I'm the Executive Director of Student Services for Bear Valley Unified School District. And before we get started, we do have some distinguished guests here tonight. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Mary Suzuki, Superintendent of Schools. And next to her is Dr. Lisa Weiner, Executive Director. And here walking by us is Manny Marquez. Thank you for opening up your school for us. We appreciate it so much. So I just want to thank everyone for attending, pulling the pieces together. As parents and community members, you all know that our students are being bombarded with messages about drugs. And so tonight, we want to provide you an opportunity to hear from our panel of experts about the current drug trends here in the Big Bear Valley. As you arrived tonight, you all received one of these cute little books. This is so you can take some great notes tonight, and then take this information home and have these conversations with your kids. They're going to listen to you. And another thing I want you to know is that there's an index card. So at the end, if you have any questions, please just put them on the index card, and we're going to pass them up to our gentlemen and ladies up here on stage. So, I'm about ready to give up on this. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, I think I've had enough of that. So, right here we're going to start with Bear Valley Community Healthcare District. This is Scott Sirico.
All right, I know you all can hear me, so I'll just talk loud. Do we have a PowerPoint for me, or did that not make it over?
It did, and so there we go.
Okay, so, is this on?
No,
Oh, you turned it because I'm loud?
I'm just kidding.
Do you want this?
Yeah, that's fine. You're not just saying
Is that okay? Can you hear? No, never mind. I'll just talk loud because I'm a loud talker. So my name is Scott Sirico. I am the Director of Education and Patient Care Management at the hospital. I have been a critical care ER nurse for 24 years. I've been an educator of nurses for about 12 years of that time. And when I came here 2 years ago, my wife and I brought my two boys up here and decided to get a better lifestyle than in the city. And so when I came up here, I was asked to be the educator up here, then I was asked to do some work in the community. And so last school year, I spent time at Baldwin teaching the kids about hand washing and the teachers about COVID protection. I taught the community about stroke awareness. This school year, I've spent time here at this school talking to your students about fentanyl. Because we all know that drugs are a big problem, but fentanyl is a huge problem. And fentanyl is kind of taking over not only our state, our country, but our valley as well. So can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So when I came here in October to talk to the kids, I had statistics from 2020 that showed that 5,502 Californians died of an opioid overdose, and almost 4,000 of those were from fentanyl. Last year, that went up to 7,175, but the number of fentanyl deaths went up to almost 6,000. That means that fentanyl is killing our community at a higher rate each year than even the jump of like COVID or strokes or heart disease. So if it keeps rising the way it is, it's going to start becoming one of the top 5 causes of death in our state. The problem, next slide please. The problem with fentanyl is that, I think most of us adults are aware of opioids, pain medications, codeine, Norco, Vicodin. Fentanyl is not made from a plant. It's not made from a natural source in a pharmaceutical lab. It's made in a pharmaceutical lab from synthetic materials, okay? And fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more potent than our other opioids, meaning that when I give you a Vicodin, I give you milligrams. When I give you fentanyl, I give you micrograms, because fentanyl is 100 times more potent than that Vicodin. So what happens is that our drug cartels, our illegal drug manufacturers, they realized when they were selling Percocet and Oxy on the street, they realized that they could take a Percocet, they could cut it in 4, and they could add fentanyl to it, and now they could sell it a lot more of that pill for a lot more profit. So now I'm selling 4 instead of 1, and I'm making more money. The problem is that they don't know how much fentanyl they're putting in those pills. So maybe one day I get a pill and it gives me a good high. Maybe the next day I get a pill and it kills me, and that's what's happening to our residents, to our community that's addicted to pain medication or to drugs. Is they'll go and they'll buy what they think is a Percocet or an Oxy, and they're getting fentanyl, and they take one pill and they pass out, they stop breathing, and then your police and fire department arrive, and if they get there in time, maybe they can save them. But as you can see from these, the numbers I showed you before, that's not working out so well right now. Can I get the next slide, please? So what I was talking to the students here about, what I'm talking to students at the high school about, is that, we think that we're okay when we start vaping, because vaping is just vaping, right? We have a lot of people that have quit smoking by going to vaping, and they don't realize the amount of nicotine they're getting in the vape that's more than the cigarette. Well, when you start putting marijuana and other chemicals into a vape, you're getting a high concentration of that drug. So then you become addicted to marijuana, then that becomes not enough. A lot of these young people are treating anxiety disorders, depression, gender identity issues, or just identity issues of not fitting in. So they then go to a higher dose of marijuana, or they start doing the Percocets, they start doing the pain medications. And what I learned when I started diving into this, and it really shocked me because, my kids have cell phones, my oldest does at least, and you always, I've got a policy in my home that we could do a search of your room, a search of your phone at any time. My son is 21 years old. My wife will still, if he's acting up, she'll say, "Show me your phone." And he rolls his eyes, he's like, "Here." But I start looking at his text, I'm like, what the heck does this mean? Well, these kids are getting these drugs by emojis. They'll get an emoji of a unicorn or a rocket, and a number of emojis put together tells these kids where to go to get their, get these Percocets. So we as parents are behind the 8 ball, because if we don't, and these emojis change every year, if we don't know what these emojis are, we don't even know that our kids are doing this. Then they get addicted to the Percocets, and they're buying that, and then they get the one that's laced with fentanyl. And then they end up, you open the door to their room, and they're not breathing, they're laying on their bed blue. And that's the real issue that's facing our community, San Bernardino County, and the rest of California, is that our kids are being given drugs that they don't even know what they're getting now. They don't even know what's laced into that. And they get a dose that's too high for their system, and they will stop breathing. I showed 8 different children in Southern California that died in the last 2 years of fentanyl Percocet overdoses, and each and every one of those were kids that thought they were getting a perk. They had taken it before. One of them was a first-timer. One of them was a young girl who her friends filmed her taking it. They were just, daring each other. And then she immediately, within 10 minutes, stopped breathing. And they, thank God, called 911. But unfortunately, by the time she got to the hospital, she was brain dead, and they had to take her off life support. These are the kinds of situations that we're seeing out there in our community. So the reason I'm here tonight is because I want you as parents, and I wish I could have the whole school's parents here, like every parent here, because obviously you guys want to know. You're here because you want to know what's going on with your kids, and I appreciate that. The worry is those parents who are just kind of turning a blind eye, or they're just not aware, and they think it's not going to happen to me. Our kids think it's not going to happen to me. It's just marijuana. It's just Percocet. It's no big deal, but it is. It's a huge deal. So, again, I encourage parents. It's okay to be strict with your kids. It's okay to do random searches of their rooms. It's okay to do random searches of their phones. Find out what the heck their friends are texting them, or who that is that's texting them. I remember my son, the minute he got on Instagram, he had like 140 people following him. I said, "Who are these people?" "I don't know." Doesn't fly in my house. If you don't know them, then you're not friends with them, because again, you don't know what they're going to be sending you and what that's going to mean later on. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate that. And if you have any other questions, I'll be here afterwards to answer those.
And again, those 355 index cards also. So next, from the Sheriff's Department, we have Detective Travis Weinhammer. And thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi guys, I'm Detective Weinhammer. I work for San Maria County Sheriff Department. I'm currently assigned to the Narcotics Division, specifically major narcotics, and I'm on a DEA task force. So my office is down in Riverside at one of the Fed buildings. I'm also on the clandestine laboratory team. We go to, like, anytime there's a drug lab in our county, or even outside of the county in the state, when they need assistance, I'm the one responding and going into those meth lab, fentanyl labs, and THC extraction labs in the full suit, the containment and dismantling those and testing. I spent a short time on the overdose response team. I did about 1.5 years on that team. Saw a ton of overdoses, ton of overdose deaths, ranging from, I think my youngest was 14 years old, up to 50s, 60s year old. So it's not just like it's not just a kid problem. It's really like a everybody problem. As he was speaking about, pain pills and people getting addicted to pain medication and then turning and then going into the fentanyl, and that's a reoccurrence that we're seeing up until recently. Recently, we've been looking at a lot of social media, a lot of text messages, really diving into these kids' phones, and the Percocets aren't made by the pharmaceutical manufacturers anymore. That particular stamping isn't made. They don't make the M30 pills. It's only illicit drugs coming mostly south of the border. These messages and things I see in Snapchat, Instagram, and in text messages are blatant. Like, hey, there's fentanyl in those, right? And the user's saying, yeah, but I'm addicted. I can't get away from it. Kids are knowing now that there's fentanyl in it and getting the high from that. And after they're turned to it. I do have a PowerPoint here. This is one of the biggest problems that I'm seeing right now. These are all my pictures that I took. So they're not like pictures on the internet that I'm pulling. These are from my phone. This one right here is a colored speckled fentanyl. It was probably blue when it originated, and then they speckled pink and yellow, and it kind of looks, it looks like cereal almost. This seizure right in the middle is that. That was a little over 100 pounds of fentanyl pills that I found in San Bernardino off of Baseline, like literally right at the bottom of the mountain. And then that was in November of last year. And then March, we ordered up, and I got a bunch of the actual colored fentanyl from a seller, and we ended up doing the deal in LA. It's here, like the colored fentanyl is here, and there's only really one reason for the colored fentanyl, and it's to give to children, to sell to children. Why else would somebody be manufacturing illicitly pills of narcotics in bright colors? There's only one reason for it, and it's to sell to our children. It truly is. This is kind of what I wanted to drive home tonight, that it's out there and we're seeing a big rise in the colored stuff, and it really is to be selling to kids. And these kids are not naive about it. They know what's inside of it. They really do. They're not doing like, it was like pain med, and then I'm jumping into this. Kids know what this stuff is, and they're just chasing that high. And we're seeing a lot of it. So.
All right, thank you so much. All right, from Big Bear Fire Department, we have engineer and paramedic John Bidwell, and he's going to give us a look at what you're finding locally.
Yeah, so hi, John Bidwell, engineer, paramedic, been there for 15 years. We've seen a lot of overdoses, and we've obviously, just like they're talking, seen a significant rise every year. I had one last night. We had a CPR the last set. We had a CPR the day before, twice last set. So it's almost like, I can almost say every single day I work, I'm running on a CPR or an overdose up here. So it's getting bad. So I take a personal passion in this. I don't have a PowerPoint, I just did bullet points because we have 10 minutes, so I'm hoping I can get as much of this out to you as I can. I also have a personal vendetta in this because I do have 3 kids in the schools. I have 1 elementary, middle, and high school. I watched all of my high schoolers' friends all try drugs in middle school. It was pretty wild. Because I'm just not used to that. So I've seen a difference, you know, back when people used to try drugs, it was more senior year, when you become an adult. Now it's elementary, middle, and high. It's here for all of them. So I also have some loved ones that are impacted by substance abuse, like probably all of you do. So it's kind of some experience with that too. I'd like to bring some awareness and of this known growing issue, and I'm hoping I can give some guidance on maybe how to approach your child. Some of the things I say are based off of some experiences that we've seen, so I apologize if you think it might be somebody you know, but there's no way I can do it. It's not a HIPAA violation, just so you're aware, but I'm hoping I can touch her right now with this information, and I'm hoping that you can take him home and be real with him so that he doesn't try this stuff. So it's substantially growing, like we stated, higher and higher every year. So some of you experimented with substances when you were younger, right? I'm sure you were, you don't have to answer that. But back when adults or seniors, maybe some juniors did this stuff, they knew what they were getting. They knew it was weed, they knew it was cocaine, they knew it was whatever you want to say. Now it's all fentanyl. It's all fentanyl. It's no longer what you think it is. So every overdose we run on, and my partners can attest to this, we hear the same story. I thought I was doing coke, or I thought I was popping a pill, I thought I was doing a Percocet, I thought I was smoking weed. The thing is that they thought they were doing this and it's not, it's fentanyl. So it's why the term poisoning is being used more than overdose in the media now. Because the victim isn't intending on using what they ingested, right? So we are seeing a dangerous trend up here. Narcan is given out. We are seeing people have a person stand by with Narcan as they get high, so they can get protected in a way. So because Narcan is being given out by the hospital, by CVS if you want to go use your insurance card, we're seeing a lot of home users, even their mom, like we had last night, stand by with boxes of Narcan. So this is dangerous, right? It's kind of a bad, dangerous trend, but it's what's happening now. It's almost a gateway to do the fentanyl, do the opiates. So this is dangerous, and I want to kind of talk about the science behind it. Hopefully it doesn't bore you, but I want you to understand what's happening a little bit. So the opiates bind to the respiratory receptors in the body, and therefore the respiratory drive feels full. So that means your body thinks it's breathed enough. So that's why you stop breathing. That's what opiates do. So what is the problem with this? We used to pull someone out of a high and they would jump up and run around. I mean, literally, we'd slam one box of Narcan, which is the counter drug for opiates. They'd jump up off the floor and run from us because our drug worked. Nowadays, it's taken 3, 4, or 5 boxes, and sometimes it's not working. So we're giving them boxes just to at least keep their heart going, a little bit of breathing, but we got to give them to the hospital where they're slamming IVs of Narcan for hours because it's so potent. So their brains become hypoxic. So this mentality of protecting your loved one with a box of Narcan, the problem is before that person stops breathing fully, there's 5 to 10 minutes of not breathing effectively, which is killing the brain. So these people we're running on, and we run on multiples over and over and over, we're watching them degrade. Every time we run on that person, the next week, they're just a blob. their brain is damaged and it's getting worse and worse to where it's really not effective anymore. So also, we're seeing less patients we can save. I think before, for sure, CPRs were pretty much non-existent. We had a very rare overdose where we performed CPR on them. It was, most were saved. Most were just barely breathing or not breathing. It's not like that anymore. Most are dead. So we're seeing a spike in deaths. We're getting a little bit where we're barely able to compensate for them. And then we're, one in a 2 month period where we saved their life. We brought their breathing back, took them to the hospital, and they probably overdosed a week later, but at least they survived at that time. So thanks for the kids. I bring in reality. So I don't know if some of you have done this, but and I hope I don't rub anybody the wrong way. Like I say, I have a brother who is this. So when you drive by like a homeless person, I blame that on drugs. I blame it on substance abuse. I don't care if they have other personal things that put them there, because my kids don't care. My kids care that he did drugs and now he's eating trash out of trash cans. So you have to touch them and make it an emotional experience. We personally, us three, have been on 2 to 3 incidents in the past year to where we went to a house for a CPR, an overdose, fentanyl. The first time we were told it was meth, second time we were told it was pills that they crushed up and freebased it. We went there for a CPR victim. The family and friends were distraught. We went right back 2 hours later and picked up his brother. Same thing. Brother died 2 hours later. So the mom watched both brothers die within a few hours. So I always ask my kids, if you saw your brother, sister, or best friend take something and they died, would you take it? No, right? That's crazy, right? But these people are doing that because it's so addictive. These calls make me sad sometimes. The age of overdose is teens to 40s now. I tried to get statistics and I couldn't, because most of our overdoses come out as unconscious, CPRs, altered. So for me to go in there and actually identify which ODs were part of that primary problem, it was impossible with 6,000 calls we run. So I apologize for that. Just know it's substantially growing every day. So the approach needs to be experiences and statistics with your kids about how dangerous this stuff is. They need to hear that fentanyl is in everything, including weed, and they need to hear that they can and most likely will die if they consume this potent drug. You as parents need to remind your kids multiple times, a month, weeks, days, of how many people are perishing from accidental overdoses and poisonings, especially from fentanyl. Don't be afraid to tell them. They can handle it. Kids have a skewed idea that if they meet some friends and try a drug, whether it's pills or anything else, that their friends will be there to protect them. I can tell you that this is far from the truth from my experience. If one of your friends overdoses, you will all run, because you are not going to get caught. You're not going to be in trouble, right? If you watch somebody die, you're going to leave with all the rest of them that run off. It doesn't matter how big of a bestest friend you have, you will let them die on that couch. So it's important to understand that. They will not protect you. You will be found the next day dead by yourself, right? It's important. Tell your kids this stuff. Try to tie as many discussions to real life as possible. When it comes to discussing substance abuse usage with your child, don't be afraid to talk about your experiences as well. I tried a couple things back when I was a young man. I've told my kids why that was bad. Like some of my friends that took it too far and I don't have here today, they know what happened to them. They know their story, and I told them how sad it was and how bad it was for the whole family and how bad it was for Big Bear. Some of my friends that died up here, it collapsed this mountain for a week because we all know each other. Without making kids feel emotions about a subject they just will not listen or care. With that, I really don't have much more to say. I'm working with the task force here. I appreciate this program. I'm growing a passion for it. I do plan on coming to this school with our unit and maybe an ambulance, and we're gonna get one-on-one classroom time and do some activities. One of the activities that I think it would be good is, I plan on getting like a jar and putting some Skittles inside white sand and scooping out 5 kids. I'll have 5 kids stand here, and I'll scoop out, and whoever gets the Skittles dies. Because that's how it works. Just like the detective was saying, most in that group won't die. They'll have fun. They'll have the best time of their lives getting high. But one of their friends could die because they got the bad pill. So you can't trust anything anymore. So with that, I'll be back. Thank you.
And now for a larger look at things, I have the field representative from Congressman Jay Obernolte, Karina Mora. Thank you, Karina.
Hi, everybody. This is a very, sensitive subject, but it is definitely something that we all need to talk about with our kids, with our families, and everybody. So we've heard from everybody, all the first responders and the people who respond to these immediate crises. And what Congressman Obernolte, being your federal representative, is what is he doing at the federal level? So I just want to read off a few bills that he's been working on to help protect your kids, your families, everybody in our district and over the United States. Representative Obernolte is a co-sponsor of the HALT Fentanyl Act and voted in favor of the bill when it passed the House Energy and Commerce Committee in March. This bill will permanently place fentanyl-related substances into a Schedule I of the Controlled Substance Act. Congress has enacted temporarily extensions several times over the last few years, and these continued temporary solutions are not sustainable. We need a permanent solution and must pass the HALT Fentanyl Act now. Congressman Obernolte is also a co-sponsor of the Felony Murder for Deadly Fentanyl Distribution Act, which increases the penalty for knowingly distributing fentanyl to reflect the unique lethality of this drug and its potential to kill hundreds of thousands of people across the United States. Felony murder is equivalent to first-degree premeditated murder and requires a minimum sentence of life with eligibility for capital punishment if convicted. This is a significant increase from the current penalty for Schedule I and Schedule II drug distribution, resulting in death, which carries a mandated 20-year minimum sentence. That means any drug dealer that knows they're putting fentanyl into their drugs knowingly and selling it on the streets, if one person dies, they will be convicted. And that is something that we need to stand by. Congressman Obernolte is also a co-sponsor of Securing America's Borders Against Fentanyl Act, which became law as part of the FY23 NDAA. This bill will require the administration to finally recognize the crisis at hand and build new strategies to target and detect illicit fentanyl coming through the southern border and onto America's streets. It would also more than quadruple research and development into technologies and strategies that deter and indirect fentanyl shipments into the United States. Congressman Obernolte is a big advocate for securing our borders because of the way the cartel manages the borders and the way they send people over with drugs that come into our communities. Although San Bernardino County isn't a border community, it still affects all of us. It still affects our children, still affects our friends and our families. So he's a big supporter in securing the borders because that is where most of these drugs are coming from, and it is a danger to everybody. So he's fighting in Washington, D.C. to make sure that these bills go through to help protect and to help the punishment to people who are doing these things directly and that are affecting our children, our families, and our communities.
Thank you all so much for sharing your knowledge tonight. We're going to move on to the question and answering part of that. And to lead that, I have Jesse Rogers from RIM. Will you please come on up from RIM Family Services? And Cherie Grizel from Lutheran Social Services. Will you hop in here to the LSF? And in here, does anyone have some questions they want? Yes, no. Okay.
No questions, huh? All right.
Hi,
for RIM Family Services and co-chair of the Breakthrough Task Force Coalition. And our goal is basically reducing underage drinking and drug abuse. So we do that whether it's working on different policies. One thing we did, we passed the smoke-free outdoor policy in the city of Big Bear Lake, using students within our community that went to City Hall and they talked to the city council. We also we did the art show, the youth art show that was up here. We've got the Game Escape coming up on June 8th. So just trying to provide alternative activities for youth to do here in the community. I'm born and raised in Big Bear, so I know it can get a little boring sometimes up here, and so idle hands turn to not so good things. And so we just want to provide opportunities for our youth to have something to do, in addition to we did education at the schools, and yeah, we're kind of all over the place. So, and then Sheree, you want to?
So I'm Sheree Grizelli. I am with Lutheran Social Services. I provide my services, which is AOD, substance abuse counselor in the middle school and high school. So for instance, if a kid gets in trouble vaping on campus, that's when the school ends up getting in contact with me. We do a contract, and that's when your kids come to me and I end up educating them on substance abuse and vaping. I set up tables for the school, which is an awesome thing that they let me do. I put swag at the table. I ask kids to pledge that they're not going to use. I also have Jamie that works with me, where she's in the back, where we set up our tables and we pretty much try to educate kids on substance abuse. That is my main goal, is when I'm in the schools with these kids. I see about maybe 13 to 14 kids each group, and I have about maybe 8 groups period that I have between here and the high school. But my main goal is to educate these kids on these substances that are out there, because if a kid uses, once they use one time, they are not afraid to use again. So if I can teach them about use, abuse, and what happens with that substance, that you can become dependent on it, that's my goal. I want to be able to teach them that if they do go to a party or something and they are handed maybe some kind of substance, or they see something, they're going to know what that substance can lead to. So that is my goal. And it's awesome to be here, and yeah.
All right, so we'll go ahead and jump into some questions for you guys. Are you ready? So kind of touching and going back to naloxone, one of the questions is, what is naloxone? You touched on that a little bit, but then how can people access naloxone here within our community?
I can answer that. So the state of California has provided Narcan nasal dispensers to our hospital, and we have the ability to give them out to our community as needed. So the first thing that has happened is that any patient who is prescribed pain medication that is going to be used more than a couple weeks post-op, we have to prescribe them 2 doses of Narcan with that. But we then, at our emergency room, we have Narcan to give out. So if you had a family member, or if you had an older child who you felt was addicted, you were trying to get them help, and it's kind of a hit or miss, we would give you Narcan, so that if you found your family member down, you could call 911. The fire department's on their way, but you're already hitting them with the first dose or 2 of Narcan. So we can do that through the ER. We're also, we have a booth. Shannon's in the back. She's one of my substance abuse navigators. And we have a booth at the farmer's market, and we're going to start having a couple of those there, so that if you needed that and you wanted to just come by and pick that up if you were concerned about a family member or whatever. So not that hard to get now. And soon, if not already, it's supposed to go over the counter, so you could buy it too. But we do not charge you. We will give you some Narcan if you feel you need it for whatever. And I do want to be clear too, because one of the things that we try to do is we try to give our addicts Narcan. And as a nurse, when I first heard that, I said, why would you give an addict Narcan? Once he goes down, he can't give it to himself. But if he does have a friend that is willing to stay by and grab that, they could use it. So we're trying to get it out there as much as we can. The police department's been carrying it for years now, and they've been instrumental in saving lives when they get there first. But again, like you heard tonight, it's not as easy as it was 5-10 years ago to save somebody who's overdosed.
Would anybody else like to add?
I'd like to add something, or ask Scott something. So I carry Narcan with me. If I had to use it, do I have to wear gloves?
For Narcan, no, you do not.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about anything.
No.
Okay.
Narcan's not going to do anything to me if I got it on me, or even if I gave myself a dose, it's not going to hurt me. No.
No, I would add though, if you used it on somebody else and you can see like powder fentanyl around his mouth or his nose or anything like that, yeah, I would definitely put gloves on. But if it's just administering the Narcan itself, no.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, the next question is, could you do reenactments like DUI car crashes? I would imagine maybe they're thinking about the every 15 minutes that we used to do, BC before COVID. So I don't know if one of you guys would like to.
I can touch on, so I'm doing that right now. I have 5 girls in this school that I have scripted to do a scenario, and it's gonna be kind of like that. So I'm going to have one of the boys in their group hit them up at school and say, hey, I got these pills, it feels really good, it's awesome, that whole deal. Have them go out to dinner or whatever, make it a cool little movie type deal, and that's what it's gonna be, a movie. Have them take it at his house and actually have the sheriff show up, have engines, ambulance, and do a fake CPR, and one person will die. I want to show that the other kids scatter. I want to make those impactful things that I said in here. This was kind of a lot of my script. Show that when one overdoses is sitting on the couch, not breathing, that the others will leave. She'll be found hours later. So to answer your question, yes, it's actually in the works right now. And it's going to be like in every 15 minutes, and I'm hoping it goes out to all the schools, and it's just something we play every year.
Could any of you guys also touch on the Good Samaritan law? So I know you spoke about, some students may leave for fear of getting caught themselves, or whatever that might look like for each student, but can somebody touch on the Good Samaritan law and what that might look like? No?
Good Samaritan to me is not for them, it's not kids. Like, again, like if she even knew what the Good Samaritan law is, which Good Samaritan is if I am walking down the sidewalk and I see somebody go down and I try to help them, if I hurt them, I'm protective. So like all of you, like if you try to help somebody out of a car and you break their neck, but your intentions were good, you're not going to get in trouble because of the Good Samaritan law. For her, like, now you know what that is, right? The Good Samaritan law, it's you're protected if you help somebody. But are you still going to stay in a house where one of your friends is dead on the couch? Probably not. Good Samaritan law isn't going to really work for them. I think that's more of an adult thing, helping other adults.
The next question is, could we bring in drug-sniffing dogs for backpacks at school?
That's a school district question.
Yeah. So maybe we can come back around to that one. I just got one here that says, can parents volunteer or help you in any way to get this message out? Well, that's actually the Breakthrough Task Force Coalition. That's what we're all about, is helping a community together. That's kind of our whole spiel, is that when we're together, we can make a difference, right? We do have a Facebook page, so if you are on social media, you can go to the Breakthrough Task Force. That's one way that you can share some of the things that we're consistently putting on there to get that message out. I don't know if anybody else would like to add to that. Other ways that parents can help.
So yes, getting the word out there is the number one way you guys can do that. You have parent friends, parents of your children's friends who who aren't here tonight, and they need to hear this. Later this year, I think either August or September, the Rotary is going to be sponsoring a night built around fentanyl, and I'll be speaking in depth that night on fentanyl. So if you see that in the paper, the advertising, get other parents involved to go to that, because again, the more you know, the more you're aware, the more you can help educate your children. There was a commercial years ago, an old 70s actor whose son died of an overdose, and he did a commercial saying, do whatever you can to get between your kids and drugs. That message couldn't be more true today. We need to get between our kids and drugs, because the drug cartels, the ones that are selling it, making money, they don't care about your kids. They don't care about my kid. I've got a 12-year-old, and I think my 12-year-old knows. I teach him, but I'm scared to death every time he leaves my home, because I don't know what he's going into, even in our own community, and what he's going to be exposed to. And like you heard, once a child tries a drug, marijuana, whatever, and they are okay, they're not afraid to do it again, and they're not afraid to do the next drug and the next drug. That was the whole premise around cocaine back in the 80s. Well, now it's fentanyl today.
Okay, so to the fire department, when you think about doing that activity with kids grade 2 through 5 in elementary class?
You don't know, like every 15 minutes thing?
Um,
Oh, the activity, yeah, I mean, we can totally do that. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I figured I just started here. I got Manny, who would probably let me come do it.
Oh, yeah.
I got to weigh in. Actually, I got ways in too at the elementary school, so. Yep.
The next question is Trank on the hill? Trank? I would imagine like tranquilizer type things. Is that the question or no? Or
Is it Trank or the Crank?
T
Is
R
it like
T
the
R
crocodile?
A N K.
Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, it is a crock.
Oh,
Well, no, it's different from ketamine. It's different from special K. Trank. So I haven't seen any personally on the Hill. We're not really seeing it in Southern California. You have to remember, like, we're Southern California. We're a border state. So everything that we have on our streets is going to be driven by the cartel. Everything. I think you were speaking earlier, like, some of it or a lot of it is coming from south of the border. Like 99% of our drugs on the street, maybe even 100%, are coming from south of the border. Every drug lab that I go to is stuff coming from the south of the border and then being just finished here. It's already been manufactured. Everything's coming south of the border. So they drive whatever they're putting up here. We haven't seen really Crank's kind of like an East Coast, South Florida, Alabama area, and they call it crocodile for a little while. It's like you literally use it and it starts flesh eating you, like eating your flesh and like creating nasty, crazy sores. Yes, 100% like zombies. We're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of fentanyl being pushed, still cocaine, methamphetamine, marijuana, tons of that, but not so much of that. But, okay.
What are the legal consequences for possession with youth?
So if you guys are aware with Prop 47 quite a few years ago, and they basically made drugs legal, basically. It used to be like, when I was working the streets, I would stop somebody, they'd have a bag of meth, I would arrest them for possession of methamphetamine. It was a felony, so they would go to jail. And they would spend a few days in jail, and then they'd go see a judge. Now they have downgraded that possession to a misdemeanor. Meaning that if I stop somebody on the street and they're in just simple possession, I write them a traffic ticket, I give them the ticket, I take their drugs, and then that's it. See you later, and I go book the drugs into evidence. There's no consequence for any action. And that includes juveniles too. There is no juvenile enhancement because you're under 18 and you have drugs. It's still the same charge. So unless you actually have enough or you're possessing it to sell or manufacturing it, that's when it reaches to the felony level, is the selling of it. But simple possession of any of the hard drugs is a misdemeanor. And then obviously everything else. And you're absolutely right, like they're late. I hate the word lace because, like fentanyl pills, they're not laced, they're specifically pressed with fentanyl. There's a purpose. They're not lacing it. They're lacing it with Tylenol and other binding agents because they're pushing fentanyl. But like they are like putting fentanyl in everything. You're 100% right. Marijuana, I've seen fentanyl in marijuana. I've seen fentanyl in cocaine. We're getting kilos and they're being sold as cocaine and we test it and it's pure fentanyl. Everything, methamphetamine, fentanyl. The reason why the cartel is pushing this so hard, the reason why south of the border is pushing it so hard, because it's easy to manufacture and cheap to manufacture. With opiates, when you make cocaine, you have to have an organic principle. You have to have the poppy plant. So you have to grow poppies in the field, then you manufacture the drugs from the poppy plant itself. the opioids are all synthetic based. They're literally getting chemicals shipped from China to Mexico, and they're making it in Mexico and then either pressing it or they're keeping it in powder form. And you think like, oh, they're just pills. They look like regular pills. Like literally, they're putting it in like these big like Tupperware containers. Okay, there's my fentanyl, there's my Tylenol, a little bit of binding agent, mix it up real good, and then put it in the machine and just start pressing pills out. So you have no quality control. That's what you're talking about. Like one pill might have, you need 4 to 7 nanograms of fentanyl to kill somebody. So one might have 1 nanogram or 2 nanograms. Oh, this, got a little high off of it. The next pill might have 14 and kill the person. Like it is so, there's such a wide variety of nanogram of fentanyl in each pill, and because it's uncontrolled. Literally, it's being made that simply. Just throw it in a barrel, throw it in the machine, and press it. Sorry.
No, that's great. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay. So kind of going along with that, then, what happens to a kid if they do stick around to get help for a friend? What kind of consequences or anything might happen there?
They're going to be a witness. There's no consequences. They're going to be a witness there. They're going to get interviewed by the sheriff's department or the fire department. Talk to, hey, what did he take? It would be so important for a friend to be there, for my sake and for your sake. If I've had overdoses where the friends do stick around, and it's like, oh yeah, he talked to the guy on Snapchat that is M30 plug emoji. That gave us the stuff. This is where he got it, and then this is how much he took, and that's valuable information for the fire department. If they know like, oh yeah, he did a quarter pill. Well, a quarter pill's not that much, but there could be a lot in there. But at least we know that he took a pill, rather than a powder or things like that, and then they can evaluate their action on what they're going to do. There is no repercussions, and there's no repercussions if you're seeking medical help and you have drugs on you. There's no repercussions. You're not going to get arrested for possession of drugs. There's been legislation that was put down. I think it's been like 5-6 years. We would literally, there'd be an OD and we'd pull a baggie of dope out of it and we'd put it in safekeeping. We'd never charge them with it because we can't. We can't legally charge somebody with that. So if you're there or if you're experiencing an overdose, then there's not going to be any repercussions because you're seeking medical help at that point.
Do you suggest all parents have Narcan at home? The suggestion has been in the news.
I carry 5 doses in my car. All the time.
If you are worried that your child could experiment with drugs, yes, I would have Narcan at home. Absolutely.
But we have these. There was 2 years ago, Anaheim. These people were making. They had powdered fentanyl in a hotel room and overdosed. Fire department came. They brought the guys to the hospital. The cleaning crew cleaned up and put the hotel room available the next day. Family goes in. Little kid is playing in the carpet. Kicks up the fentanyl. The kid ODs. So, like, how many of us use hotel rooms? How many of us go on vacation? That was in Anaheim. They're going for a Disney vacation. So, do I suggest everybody have access? Absolutely.
Could we repeat this education night with our middle schoolers present? I thought this was for parents only.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was,
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
there's a couple questions for the.
Yeah, there is. So I did invite Scott earlier this year. We've been working together on it. If you ever want to look at the lesson plans, we actually have them posted on our website under student services and things we can do. You can take a look at those lesson plans and what it looks like. And I'm pretty sure Scott is going to come back and help us again next year with those lesson plans. So Randy's working on that too. So that is happening. That part is happening. Additional question was, could we bring in drug sniffing dogs for backpacks at school? I like how you said, pre-COVID. Easy. Yeah. We definitely something we can check out again. We used to work with our department. There was a sheriff's department down the hill, I believe, gave us access to that. So we can absolutely check into that. As you know, this is kind of the first year we've all been getting rolling with all those programs we had in place pre-COVID. And so little by little, I think we are getting them all back in place. So I'm happy to look back into that. And so, absolutely. Anything else for?
I just wanted to add, in regards to letting students know, we just did specific education for our freshman studies classes at the high school, and although those classes were geared more towards nicotine and cannabis, I myself did do a small section where I plugged in about fentanyl, so at least those students are aware, and so hopefully they'll pass along that information as well. I do have one more question here. It says, there is legislation to make fentanyl a controlled substance. What does that provide as a safety factor? Did I say that right? Factors, yeah. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I'm not.
Read it again.
So, Bonnie, I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, what does it mean if it's a controlled substance? Didn't you say that it's working to get it into?
So there is a difference between prescribed fentanyl that the hospitals use and the pharmaceutical companies create. This is a completely different manufactured, it's illegal. They're two different things because these drug dealers are not getting them from the pharmaceutical companies. They are manufacturing this on their own.
So manufactured fentanyl would be a controlled substance. You'd have to sign to receive it and that kind of thing, get that prescribed.
So fentanyl that's prescribed to patients is a controlled substance. We don't just hand it out. It has to be prescribed by the doctor who has the rights to prescribe a controlled substance. So some of our mid-levels do and don't have those rights. So it is, fentanyl that's made by a pharmaceutical company is a controlled substance. And they pretty much know what's in it. There's quality control in that. But what she's talking about is legislation to try to make the laws stricter on people who manufacture it in a garage or where he's going out to have to go in and do that. And one of the things I also want to say, and you've kind of heard a little bit of this, when fentanyl is in powdered form and it's at high doses, first responders have actually overdosed by touching it, not knowing that it was on the clothes. So that's why he goes in a full suit. Our paramedics are wearing thick gloves because we have to be careful. Because if you find a bag of powder and you don't know what it is, just be very careful with that. Because again, touching it like that child in Anaheim, it can absorb through your skin and you can overdose.
And then on the law side of things, when you're talking about legislation coming in to make it illegal or a controlled substance, for instance, like there's amphetamine salts that are made pharmaceutically, and then there's methamphetamine. So if you possess any prescription without a prescription, that would be one charge, right? And that it's not like it's a felony or it's a misdemeanor now, but there's not a specific charge for the fentanyl. So for instance, if you had amphetamine salts on you from the doctor's office, that would be having a prescription without a physical prescription. Now, if you have methamphetamine, that's a different charge. That's what she's talking about, having a specific code for possessing illicit fentanyl.
Yeah, we give fentanyl, as you probably are aware, like we give it as paramedics up here. Anytime you break a bone, you're probably getting fentanyl. So, and everybody now is afraid. It's pretty funny, like seeing the transition of them going, oh no, I don't want none of that, even though their arm's hanging upside down. So we have to explain to them, like, no, this is medicinal. It's a whole different ballgame than this that we're talking about. And then on the assembly thing, I think it's a good idea to get the kids involved, especially I think they would have benefited from this pretty good. But I think it'd be a better benefit to go to the classrooms. I think if all of us remember sitting in assemblies when we were kids and having somebody that used to do drugs and he'd be up there and you know what, sometimes he'd be crying, telling stories. I know me and my friends were monkeying around and not even listening. And there was maybe 2 girls in the whole school that had tears in their eyes, but I walked away from there kicking somebody and jumping down the hallway. So I think it'll be a better approach if we spent maybe over a month. We can hit every classroom one-on-one and say, dude, this is what you're going to be approached with. This is what it looks like. Here's some stories. It's sad, isn't it? Your friends aren't going to trust you. Here's a thing that shows how you can die and you may not. I think we need to take a different approach at kids. Doing it in mass numbers in an assembly, I just don't find the benefit anymore. These kids now are freaking advanced. And I bet you them sitting up there, they would be doing the same thing. They'd be looking at their phones, they'd be laughing, they wouldn't be listening to any of us.
That's true. The county there's a YouTube video, it's called Dead on Arrival. I saw that video at county, it was the same thing, you know, a group of people, we had the DAs in the county there talking, she showed me that video and I was like, oh my goodness, and it has parents who lost their kids, and it's a very touching, short video. I sent it to my kids, and every time I go to one of these events, I still send it to them every time. I talk to them about it, and they're like, yes, Mom, I know. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing my job if I don't remind you every single time. So it's a good video. It's on YouTube. Share it with your kids. You know, it really hits a little bit more of a reality to what we're talking about.
What's it called again?
Dead on Arrival.
I think that's a great idea, because I think at home, it does start also at home, like having these conversations, you know, with your students one-on-one. They really do listen. I know they roll their eyes, and, you know, but they really are listening. If you have a younger student, one of a person suggested to me, and I thought it was really neat, is blueberry muffins. You know, we've all, you know, if you've ever made blueberry muffins, you take that, you know, couple cups of blueberries and you pull it in. And if you've ever gone, you know, to Starbucks or a bakery or somewhere and you've gotten a blueberry muffin and you split it with your kids, it's kind of a fun thing to look at, because one side of the muffin may have 3 blueberries and the other side may have the deadly amount, right? And so that's a more, I think, visual for the younger kids to kind of talk about, so just another idea.
Really quick before I ask this question, I did want to also add just another resource for the community when we talk about pills, because not only is it counterfeit pills, you know, students sometimes will go into their parents' medicine cabinets and they'll take whatever's in there. And so one resource that the community has is our prescription take-back box, which is actually located outside of the sheriff's station. It's a big green box, you can't miss it. So any old expired prescriptions that you may have, we encourage you to put them there. Please don't flush them down the toilet. It can get into the water system. They do not accept sharps, although I do believe the hospital does accept sharps, so that's any kind of needles. And then they do ask that you don't put any kind of aerosol, so like the inhalers, and then no liquids in there. And then they also encourage you to take any identifiable information off the bottles or just pour it all into one bag, and then you can go and it's available 24/7 for you to drop your prescriptions off there. And then we do have one more question here. It says, can we share all the ways our students try to fake the home drug test so we can all be wiser?
Amazon's got a bunch. I mean, you can buy the fake little pouch, you pee in beforehand and keep it down in your groin and it stays warm. I mean, there is all kinds of little
They
stuff
sell
like
it
that.
at 7-Eleven, you can add water to it. I think what's a really good idea is if you're drug testing your child, you can get these at Dollar Tree where it's like a blue tab that you put in the tank. So you could add that into the tank. So if they were to try to get water, you would hear the faucet go on, or they're not able to scoop it out of the toilet. So that kind of helps too, because then it would change the color of the urine. There's all kinds of ways to be able to fake it. If you get on YouTube, like Arnie was saying, it's going to show you all kinds of different ways. What's a good thing is I noticed with urgent care, they're doing drug testing there, and I don't know if it's for people that are trying to get jobs up here. I should get more information about that, or if it's for like kids. But you could probably, can you go to the hospital?
Yeah, I mean, we can check into the ER, but that's a big bill to do. It really, I mean, that's yeah. But the urgent care does pre-employment drug screening.
Okay, so they do. So not just for like people that are. Okay, so there you go. So that's good information. So instead of just.
But I'll tell you, when we do pre-employment, the door's open. We're standing there to make sure that they don't. That they're not faking it. We do put a blue tablet in the toilet bowl because then it turns green when their urine hits it, so we know they're not just pouring water all over the place. But again, you know, we're parents, and if I have to stand in the bathroom with my son and have a pee in a cup in front of me, I will. And they know that. My boys are like, oh man, my dad's gonna go psycho if I ever come in, high. Because I've told them, I said, I've got a drug test under the counter for my oldest, which he's such a straight-laced kid, you guys would laugh at me. But I told him, I said, if you ever come in weird, I'm in the bathroom with you and I'm watching, because this is serious stuff. This is these are our babies. These are our children. And another thing to just really keep in mind, how many of you have a relative, dad, mom, uncle, grandpa, who had an addiction problem, alcohol, drugs, whatever? 85% of addicts have a genetic disposition to it. So that means our kids have that too. So I've taught both my boys, look, you have that gene. My dad had it, I have it, you have that gene. So, you've got to even be more cautious, because you're going to become an addict faster than your friend who may not have that gene. So just be aware of that too. That's something you can use with your kids to let them know, grandpa, how grandpa gets, you're at a higher risk.
And let me go on and add to that, because you did say about like the genetics and stuff. Those are the things that I teach the students. That's very important right there for them to know that, because they need to know that there is a possibility that they can be an addict and be dependent on these substances. We're sitting here and we're talking about fentanyl, but you know what, you guys? There's other substances out there too. So if you want your child to be educated on all these different substances, and you know what, it's a touchy subject, right? But then I'm going to be the one that is sitting there and educating your child. So if that's something that you want to do, you can get a hold of Manny. Manny's awesome. I teach a lot of kids here. I come in here and teach education. I have 17 years clean off of substances. That's why I say that when somebody uses, once they use, we're not afraid to use other substances. So, so with you guys here, this room should be bigger. We should have a lot of parents in here. This is a very, very small group, but your school district and your community really cares. So, yeah, it's there for you.
Well, before we wrap it up tonight, I want you to know that Jake Sheffield is here, and he has been recording this. So if you get at home tonight and you feel like, I want to tell a friend, it's a great night, the information you should have been there. Actually, Jake, can you tell us, it's on our district website under board, and then
Yes.
meetings, and then it's the
I
YouTube.
can put the link in the news section too.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Okay, so he'll put that, but it is on our YouTube channel. It's the same channel we use for board meetings, if you're familiar with that, so it's the same one. So, and if you want to even see any past meetings we've done like this, we keep them there for you. But absolutely, please tell everyone about it. Tell them to, I will try to put that link up on the Facebook. So I'll get that and put it up on Facebook too. So you should see that in the next day or two to make it as easy as possible. But please let people know about the information we saw tonight. And then, can I just get, this was just a great panel. Thank you so much. And then what you're looking at behind you is, you want to talk about that a little, or just the resources? This is all kinds of resources. If you go by and you want to take these resources home with you, you see a QR code for both English and Spanish. Do you, anything beyond that?
Yeah, so these are also, so the One Pill Can Kill talks specifically about fentanyl. There's lots of good resources on that website specifically. Talk They Hear You. This is a really good app to talk to your students, or that you can use. It kind of has little avatars and it helps you to practice how to talk to your students. That one specifically talks about alcohol. They also have Let's Talk Cannabis, which is somewhat similar. And then of course we've got Lutheran Social Services. We've got the Breakthrough Task Force Coalition, which again is a way that you can get involved in trying to help reduce underage drinking and drug abuse. We have Inland Southern California United Way. So if you're needing resources, maybe you have friends or family that are struggling with like homelessness or just need some kind of help in that way. And then of course there's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, so you can dial 988. So if you or anyone you know is suffering from suicidal thoughts, please take advantage of that. And then you'll notice the little QR codes. Those are our surveys, our community perception surveys. Kind of lets us know where you stand and what you know about what's going on with drugs and alcohol, and it helps us with our campaign campaigns. It helps us with our education. So if you have a moment and fill one of those surveys out, we really appreciate it. And again, thank you so much for coming out. Please spread the word.